Hi again. Hope you had a good lunch. I'd like to introduce you our next speaker, Juho Vepsäläinen. A few facts about Juho. He's from Finland. He's a founder at Survive.js. Also, he is a core contributor of such popular open source projects like Webpack and Blender. Interesting fact that he had built a greenhouse and grew his first tomatoes last summer. Okay, so listen to the talk, JavaScript Frameworks of Tomorrow.
We are going to look at the topic of JavaScript frameworks of tomorrow, or what to expect in the coming years. So first, we have a look at the current trends, like what's happening exactly right now. Then we discuss three more specific topics. So first, we discuss islands architecture, what it means and what are the implications. Then this topic of resumability by showcasing Qwik. Then my own work, JSON as a building block. So I started to build a system that's using JSON for pretty much everything. And then you see what it means in practice. And finally, we have a brief conclusion. Let's get started. So in terms of current trends, we had solutions, and we still have solutions like PHP and Rails and jQuery. And the point was that these solutions were really good from the user point of view, but they were not so nice for developers. And then because of that, in part because of that, we received these solutions like Angular, JS, Vue, Svelte, React, and others. So these so-called single-page app frameworks that are really nice for developers, but at the same time, it's some kind of compromise in terms of user experience. In the future, we have a unified model for both, and in this case, we have something that makes sense for developers and for users. The point will be to provide something that's minimal to the client and something that makes sense to the developer. One of these technologies that has sort of made a huge impact on web development during the past couple of years is so-called edge computing. So this the idea itself is quite old, like tens of years old. But the point is that we push data close to the client. And here it's good to keep in mind that this technology, when it comes to the web, it has been built on top of content delivery networks, because we already had to solve some of these problems for scale. So in a content delivery network, you might have like 300 servers around the world. And then the problem is to return the data from the closest server to the client. So instead of having to go to a server that's somewhere in the United States, you provide it, assuming you're in Europe, you provide from somewhere in Europe. And on top of this idea of CDN, we can do a little bit more. So we can actually have logic running on the edge, and not just logic, but also database operations. So we can start building whole applications on this infrastructure. A while ago, 2021, October, Rich Harris proposed the idea of transitional web applications. So this, the core idea of TWA is to take the best ideas from single-page apps and from the traditional web. And what this means is we use server-side rendering for fast initial loading times. And at the same time, we built them so that you don't need JavaScript by default. So you have a website that works without JavaScript, unlike in this SPA approach, which is a big downside of that. The point is to provide consistent experience accessibility as a built-in feature. So instead of having to think about these things separately, these are provided by the framework. And this idea is consistent with this idea of progressive enhancement from 2008, in which we built the content first. So you will have your HTML, then you will develop your CSS, so it make it look nice, and then you will add some interactivity using client-side scripting. And even if the model is old, it's still valid. And later in the presentation, you can see that it's somehow hidden, but included the current solutions or the upcoming solutions. Then there is this idea of disappearing frameworks. So based on Ryan Carniotto, this this type of frameworks, they come with almost a zero cost, as they simply vanish from your application. So the starting point is quite different. So instead of sending quite big runtime to the client and then using hydration, we try to do something else. So the whole paradigm is different. So it's a paradigm level change. And because of this, we get new architectures. The interesting point is that it's consistent with what Rich was thinking with TWIs. I would like to discuss the topic of islands architecture. So what does it mean? So let's consider we have a web application here. So we have in most applications got a header. Then you have sidebar, maybe carousel, some content, advertisement, and footer. And then you can classify that, yeah, this header is static, sidebar is static, carousel, yeah, it has some interactive functionality in it. So we have some buttons, so I can move to the next slide and next previous slide. This is something we cannot do without JavaScript. Content, yeah, that's coming from the server. We don't care about that. There's some advertisement, maybe it has some logic, yes, but it's not so important. And footer, static. So through this classification, we can see that parts of the page are static and parts are not. And in a standard hydration-based approach, we will not simply care. We will just hydrate everything. But in islands architecture, we actually care a lot. So like for this carousel, we could tell that, yeah, this is an island. It's an island, and we can load it instantly. But this advertisement, it's somewhere down in the page, so we don't need it right now. So we could load it only when it's visible in the viewport. So for each island that has some interactivity, that's the important point, that islands are interactive. We can define how it's loaded. So it gives a degree of control. And as I mentioned, Qwik, it's actually doing this under the hood. So you as a developer don't have to care so much. You write your code and it's doing the split points and everything for you. But in many solutions, you actually have to care. You have to tell that this has to be loaded now and that can be loaded later. So now let's do a brief demonstration with Astro. So I will make a new project like npm create Astro latest. So we get something from that. And now it will ask like a couple of questions and create the project. So I will just go with the default. Don't care so much, but it will be enough. And yes, let's get the dependencies. Well, one point about the Astro is that it seems to be built on top of Vite. So I have a lot of tooling using Vite these days. And yes, let's do Git as well, and a strict TypeScript. So now I have the thing here. I will also do set up prettier, so it's a little bit easier for me. And let's check out what we have. So we have a new project. I will just commit everything. I don't care so much about this naming or anything. It's what it is. I don't have to push. That was a mistake. Let's see what we have. So we have this project here. Okay, we have source. It has components, layouts, pages, and some other stuff. But before that, I want to run this project. So I think the one we want is dev, npm run dev, and then now it's telling it's running in localhost 3000. So we can go there. So now we have welcome to Astro. Then I will make it so that we can actually work on it a little bit. So we have this, what they call Astro files. And here you will have imports, and then you will have your content. There are own reasons for this. I won't dig into that. You can learn through the documentation, but it's enough for an island demonstration. So here we have this markup. Let's add some text here, counter demo. So you see now it updated. So what I want to achieve, I want to write code like this. Counter, import counter from components, counter JSX. I will just use basic React for this. And then let's render it. I want that it has some text. Something like that. And of course this file doesn't exist yet, so now I have to do a bit of work. Counter JSX. And I think I need React here because it's going to be a React component. And then this told to export, what did I do? It's export default, some kind of counter. And then one thing I did as well, I was passing it text. So let's do like this, maybe like this, text goes here. So the first thing I want to render this counter. And now it's complaining that I don't have React in this project. So let's add React. And to save a bit of time, I will add React DOM as well, because it will need it. Because it has to do some server-side or whatever. Let's run it again. And now we have blank. So the problem is that we imported React, but we didn't actually integrate it to Astro. So what we have to do, we have to add it to the project. So they have a package called Astro.js React. Let's just add it there. And then there's a kind of Astro config file. And there we have to import React, the integration. And then it has to go to there, this integrations. So you see this integrations, that's an array that takes React. Like that. Then we can try to run it again. And then here. So now it's rendering. That's good news for us. So we can actually add a bit of functionality to it and try to make it an island. So for this demonstration, I will use a bit of state. So I will take count, set count, React, use state, start from 0, and then I will add the button. Let's call it +1. On click, pop up, and then there was let's say set count +1, and here we can display the count so we can actually see the value. But the point is that nothing is happening at the moment. And why is that? It's because all of this that we rendered here is static by default. So somehow we have to tell this that you're actually an island. So what happens next? Then you go to Astro website, and then there is they have what they call client-side directives. So I was writing they have a bunch. So you can say like client load. So this will load it immediately. Let's go here, client load, and then here we can see it loaded. So now it's interactive, and we can even make multiple counters. Let's do like this, 1, 2, 3. And this could exist in different parts of the page. We'll make a static build, and we have a look at that. So there's what they call npm run build. So now it's making a static build out of it. And then here you have the static version. So I will run it. And here now it's completely static, so you could push it to a static file server and it will work. And here, there are a couple of interesting points now, which I want to show. So the first point is here. So we have this Astro Island. So here it's some ID, component URL, and some metadata about it. And it tells which props are passed to it, and so. So everything gets like that. Because it's using the same component, it gets the same script as well. So the only difference is that the props are a little bit different because we're literally passing different props. And what I wanted to show is that here is loaded, and it's loading it immediately. So counter is loaded, client is loaded, index is loaded. I think this client thing, it contains React. So it's a little bit big, but you could use some other approach as well. So Astro is not tied to React; it just happens to work well like that. So you could do a mixed application or a website if you wanted. The next demonstration I want to give has to do with resumability. So this is coming from Qwik. So Miško Hevery, the author of AngularJS, is making a new framework called Qwik. And it's sort of a new, fresh take on how to build web applications. And the big idea has to do with resumability. So it doesn't do hydration at all. So in other words, it's doing some kind of serialization of state into HTML itself. When rendering, then it goes from there. And it is load. The interesting point here is that it's loading code as needed. So only as you use the application, it's loading, or at the same time you could say that preload. So you have some amount of control which code to load and when. But we try to defer what we don't need. So we might actually use a fraction of the application, so it makes sense that we load only a fraction. And it's using JSX, so if you know React, then it will be it's easy to hop into Qwik, because it looks a little bit similar. And you have these reactive bindings and stuff. So let's get rid of that. And then we do a quick demo. Let's go with basic app. Yes, I want the dependencies. One thing I noticed about Qwik is that it's still sort of early days with it. So sometimes things don't work, or it has some rough corners. You have to do some research. But at the same time, that's fine, because it's so much new in the project that I think it will take a while to stabilize. But people are starting to use it, so it's sort of good for experimentation. And here, what we have, and you see Vite running npm run Vite, and now it's there. So I was just curious with Astro stuff. So here's Qwik now. And then let's make some sense out of this. So I will skip this entry part and whatever, but what's more interesting for me is this routes portion. So now I'm at the index. Let's simplify this a little bit. So welcome to counter demo. And then I don't care about this other stuff. This can go. Yeah, you see there was an error, but it vanished when I saved again. So these are the little things I meant. So what I want counter demo. So they like this. Then I want a counter from, let's see where I will put it. Maybe I push it behind components. Let's call it counter and TSX. So I make a new file here. Let's do it like this. It's small casing. And here it gets a little bit complicated because I don't remember all of the API yet. So we need this component thing. Let's do counter. Then add this. I'll just copy this idea here. component. Okay, it wrote some code for me. That's good, and that should be like export default, because I just wanted this. I don't know all of the conventions they have, so it's a little bit tricky. Then this is taking text. Text is string, and here you want text. I cannot find it. Let's simplify, and then I will look at the browser. So you see now it's actually rendering. That's good news for us. So it's rendering this component. The interesting point about this is that you have this dollar. What does the dollar mean? Well, it means that's a split point. So when it's compiling, it will split this up into a separate file. But I think I will expand this a little bit. So just so it's a little bit closer to the other example. So we have text, and then we have count, and then we have circular button. And this will be the +1 on click. Now I have some completion here, so I will just use the completion. I don't care about this event. Here we should do something. So we want to do some state. It's a proxy-based implementation of a storage. So what I mean is that this store, like I could write something like store count ++, and here I have to say store count. Let's go back to here, and you see now it's incrementing. Again, here is this dollar. It means it will write the split point for this line. So this will be separated. And just to get back to this one, let's try a couple. So we go this first one, second one, and third one. So what I want to see is what kind of static build can we get out of it. So now we have 3 counters. Static. So what I noticed is that the documentation is not always up to date. So you have to do a little bit your own research. But now we have some kind of static build. So it wrote a bit of code. I cannot show the changes because I didn't commit before. But it was writing a bit of code. And this thing at the moment, it seems it's for whatever reason is broken. So I have to do my own target. So what it was writing was the kind of entry, and there was some weird config. But you can check that in detail later. So what I want to do, I want to make SSG build. So I have to build the client, I have to build the app. Let's see how it's going, and then. So now I have a static build, and what I wanted to showcase is what happens when I use the app. So now look at the network tab. So there's not much going on. So I think it's some kind of might be the runtime, or not even that yet. But look what happens when I press it. So it's loading the code only after I press. So that's the sort of the key idea of Qwik, is that it's only loading interactive portions as we need them, and that's a big thing. And the third demonstration I want to give you is what I call JSON as a building block. So I call my solution Gustwind. That's coming from some earlier developments. I had this solution called Anfar, which is a React and Webpack based static website generator that also implemented early version of Islands architecture. But the problem was that it was getting slow, so I could not build really big sites with it, like I think thousands of pages and more. It was so slow. And at the same time, I wanted to learn to use Dino, because Dino was upcoming technology a couple of, like 2 years back. Then I started playing with ideas, and I came with this new generator called Gustwind, which you will see very soon in a short demonstration. It's built entirely around JSON definitions, so routes, components, everything is JSON, and I sort of tried to push it to bare minimum. I think I can still simplify it a little bit, but it's not too bad. From my point of view, it's good to have a solution that you can modify as a developer. So it's sort of my the design approach, or how I design architecture. Then I did some decisions. I chose Qwik for styling. So Qwik is sort of a version of Tailwind, but in opposite way. So it's the main difference has to do with the way it's capturing this classes for static CSS. So instead of removing, it's adding. It's an incremental process, and it has a nice runtime. And then I used my own solution called Sidewind for state management. But the coupling is loose, especially with Sidewind, and I'm decoupling Qwik at the moment. And one nice side effect I learned about at one point is that you can actually write editors on top of it. I will show the editor in a moment. It's not finished or anything, but it's more like a proof of concept. And it's quite fast, and it runs parallel. So because of parallel execution, because of the fact that we have a lot of cores on machines these days, it's even faster. But that's sort of a basic thing to do on a static site generator. Then one of the things I extracted out of this project is called Breezewind. So this doing all the components and everything related to that. And I more or less took the semantics from React, so context and props and all that, and I made it extensible as well. So you can write your own plugins. And it takes JSON and it emits something like HTML, XML. So I also write my RSS with it. And also made it so that you can run it on top of workers. So you can make a route and return something rendered from a template. So in earlier version, I had one spot where it's not like eval, but that's not allowed. So I had to come up with a solution to work around this. So sort of the vision is that you could go here and then start simply editing. Like here is the class. Let's add some, it's called padding. Make background red. Maybe there will be a tab, and you can say deploy. And you could do the same for content. You could edit the content, but it's that's sort of the thing. Like it's somewhere between when completed, it's between CMS and SSG. But that's enough for this editor. What I want to create a small project. So I set up a template because it's as I mentioned, it's quite a flexible one. So there's some setup to do. Git clone. And then I will remove this one and start a new. As you can see, there's not so much. There's no npm node modules or any of this stuff because it's based on Dino. And it's a simple project. It has two tasks. So one is start. Now it's running because it's Dino. Everything is cached on the system. So it runs fast because I already had the packages by chance. And then I have the site here. And let's do something on the index. I think I want to change this text here. Let's do counter demo. And then what I want to do, I want to write a counter component. So I can tell that, I mean, it's not maybe as nice as writing something based on JSX, but it will do. So this will be the counter. It has a type, that's div. This has children, counter. I just want to build the reference first, so this will have the counter. So you see the counters here. The next thing I want to do, I want to pass it some props. This will be text. counter demo. And here's where it gets a little bit complicated, because I have to get this prop. So I will just copy some code from here and explain it in a moment. So I get the props text. So because of this constraint that you cannot do ever, I had to push certain like this functional applications to the client side or to the user side. So then I wrote it like this, so that use the get utility from props and use text. So now we have this counter demo, and then I think this is also expand it somehow. So let's write a div children, and this gets that part, because I want to do a little state container here. And this another div, and this will be a button, and this will be this +1. It lost the styling because it's have this style reset. So I want to make this a little bit bigger. So let's take this one, make a div, make this will go here. I will push it as child here like this, and this will get class. I think this text like that. Yeah, that's not too bad. Now it's a little bigger. Yeah. Okay, that's fine. And then here, this will do something. So on click, what I would like to do, I would like to set state. There's some value, then add 1 to it. But this won't work yet, because I actually need a state container. So let's write one. So this will get can be 0, and we want to show it somewhere as well. So maybe that's it. Let's make a 1 here. Don't care so much, so I push it here. And this will get X, go like this. And now I have to check out the documentation, because I forgot state. So here in the example, yes, X has to be state. That's the problem, because this has to point to this one. It will get the whole object here. So now I have a little counter here. So X state, this contests the state. I mean, it could be an object, and we could point to this object here, but now it's simply value. And then I will make a couple of copies of this one as well. So you see it's counter demo 1 and 2 and 3. So now we have a different counters. And what's interesting for comparison is to make this build. So now we have a build. It's here, and here is the same. And let's have a look at the network. So in this case, I mean, I'm not as smart as with Qwik yet. So what I actually do, I'm loading my runtime. So this runtime, it contains at the moment all of the features of my state container. So just to conclude things a little bit, what to expect in the coming years. I think we'll see a lot of exploration in terms of shipping less JavaScript to the client. We want to be a little bit smarter about it. More edge-oriented solutions. There's a lot of exploration going on. You will see unexpected meetings between front end and back end. So you see solutions that do both somehow, and in a very optimized way. And then you see more static site generators that have a little bit different focus. Instead of developer focus, I think you see something more for users, designers. So like you get this editing user interface on the web. And I think you might see something from the artificial intelligence and machine learning, because these are tools that can support your work. So maybe they could generate variants for you when you design a button. You could tell, give me variants, and then choose the best variant. That will be not too hard even to build on top of the current framework I have. So thank you for your time. Now it's time for your questions.
Thanks, Juho. Good to see you.
Yep.
Thanks.
Thanks.
Thanks for the great talk. Awesome tools. Personally, I haven't seen them before, but it was really interesting to explore it. I see that we have a comment about the last tool, Gustwind syntax. Remind me, React create element. Also, I also thought about that we are just writing EST, and maybe it's a good opportunity to create some kind of language that may be JSX or some simple JSX that will transpile to those JSON. How do you think?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I already found a converter that takes JSX and generates this type of JSON. So I think it's cool. Now more about a matter of taking this tool and building JSX support.
Cool. Do you have seen or used one of those tools, or maybe multiple in production, or it's just a research?
So with Gustwind, I have multiple sites running it. So I sort of develop it based on need, what I need for my own projects, and then I built a couple of smaller sites for other purposes as well. But I like the tool a lot because it's extremely light. And I mean, with this earlier tool, with this Advar, it was like a black box. I didn't understand most of what it was doing. It was really slow. But in this case, I understand very well what it's doing. And if there's a problem, I can more or less solve it. So that's sort of the benefit of working with simple tools.
Cool. And as if we will compare Next.js to, I guess, Astros, yes, the tool Astro.js, and if theoretically we will implement some kind of partial hydration in Next.js, what advantages will have Astro.js before Next.js?
So I think there's some overlap. At the same time, they're a little bit different. So if you think about Next, it's covering the whole stack. So you can write backends and everything with it. Astro seems more focused, and it's I will say it's a lighter tool. It's oriented for static site generation or the static sites. That said, maybe I mean, of course, you can do some dynamic. There is like how to put it. So it is very static cases, and you have very dynamic cases, and you have a lot in the middle. So now we're exploring this middle, and you can sort of see this in Next as well, because with Next you can define that something is really, really dynamic, like server-side generated and whatever, and then there is something that's cached and even static. So it's, but I will say Next is more server-oriented than Astro. So Astro is closer to this traditional static site generation tools we had before.
So that was my next question. Those tools are more oriented to static site generators, yes, or we can use it.
Yeah,
for
what I was
pages.
showing, it was more static oriented, but it's good to note that the Qwik is actually by default is providing you server code, so it likes to generate something for like the server portion and client portion, and that's where things. I think what we see in the next years even more is that things get more and more unclear. So what's static, what's dynamic, and where things are running, especially with this introduction of Edge. Because what I realized during the past 6 months or so that you can more or less have a static site, but then decide that a portion is dynamic. Like I have this like library catalog, and in the catalog it sort of it will make sense to fetch some information on demand, because you cannot simply generate the whole site when you want to do an update. But then it turns out that it's quite simple to do with Edge. So I write a Cloudflare worker that's matching my route, and then I run it through my template, cache, and return. So it's sort of my current thinking is that you should do a lot like static, but then build up the dynamic portions where you need them, or have a static starting point and then have dynamic islands. Like that's sort of what the island architecture is giving you. So you can have this like separation. I think it's quite interesting to see where the world is going at the moment in terms of this development.
Sounds reasonable. And maybe you know some use cases when team or product had React SPA and they migrated to some of those technologies and seen some advantages.
Yeah,
or migration is hard.
Maybe if you think in terms of migration, then you can look into web components, because web components, it's something that works in many different environments. So that's what I have seen, that I port from pure React or pure Angular or whatever to web component based approach. So there, because that's something you can share. It's not coupled to a framework anymore.
Okay, thanks for the great talk. I think next questions, if you have some questions, you can ask Juho in Discord. Now we will have a short break, and after that we'll hear a talk of Stefan Judis at track A and Tejas Kumar at track B. Thanks, Juho. Have a nice day. See you soon.
Thanks. Have a nice day. Yeah, see you. Bye.